Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. And yes, here we go again. My name is Scott Morgan, out the Motor City Badmouth, and glad to be joined by Stuart Hack. Good evening, Stuart.
Good evening, Scott. How you doing?
And thank you. We're doing really well, and also be glad to have our baseball analyst Mark Littell back on for the third straight week in a row. Mark, thanks for being on the broadcast.
Hey, glad to be here, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you. So, all right, well, we have some unfinished business to take care of, and the World Series wrapped up last night. And the Tampa Bay Rays obviously stuck to their process, and obviously it may have cost them the World Series. As Kevin Cash, made the same moves as he did with in the ALCS when he took his pitcher out a little bit earlier. And that he took Charlie Morton out after only 66 pitches and 5 2/3 scoreless innings in the ALCS. Pulled the trick last night with Blake Snell. Had a really good game going. It was nearly perfect. He had a 1-0 lead. Had 9 strikeouts going in there last night, and he whiffed 47% of the players that he had by throwing 73 pitches. And I will tell you that when I talk about whiff, these guys were really swinging through these pitches. And Mookie Betts was thrilled that Blake Snell came out of there. He really was, because that's what ultimately turned these game around. And bear in mind that a home run that Randy Arozarena hit for the Tampa Bay Rays gave him a 1-0 lead, but that didn't last very long. So I guess the main age-old question is, Mark, in both situations, do you think that Kevin Cash did some overthinking in this whole process by lifting his better pitchers out not once but 2 times?
Well, I think analytics came into play a little bit too much with actually both teams. And you can sit there and look at, Snell being removed and throwing quite well. And he was holding his own the whole way. He got a little sharper as he went on. And he fell into just an incredible groove right there. And when that happens, it's kind of like you don't want to touch them. I mean, you've only got 1 or 2 games left, and out of this shortened season. But it is the World Series, so anything goes. And I'm sure that Snell would have been really glad to toe the rubber and take to the hill. And Roberts did the same thing. He did some I think there's a lot of micromanaging, overmanaging a little bit, from both sides. But you saw some good play, like you said. You saw some good hitting on both sides. You saw good pitching. Everybody thought the Dodgers might walk away with it. They did not walk away with it. It was a tough series there. Tampa Bay was no slouch at all. They took it all the way to the hilt right there. You just didn't know. Rosarino, he struck out on that one changeup. I remember at 87, he had runners on first and third, and that put the inning behind him right there. He had done so much, and then the left-hander comes in to try to get him out of the jam. And he does. He gets him out of the jam. Well, you got left against right there, and people are always sitting there talking about, righty on righty, lefty on lefty. It doesn't matter, but I think obviously the left-handed pitcher, he could add and subtract really very well through the zone. And obviously he did have a handle on getting Rosarino to set down. So it was a big deal.
Yeah, I guess the train of thought was Kevin Cash did not want Snell going through the lineup for the 3rd time, right, Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, that's what he's been, I think, doing all season. They both kind of played it like a game of Stratomatic baseball. I think Tampa Bay felt that they have to substitute all these analytics for payroll because they can't afford the payroll, so everything is about the numbers to them. And I would have liked to have seen Snell go a little deeper, maybe give him another batter or 2. It's very possible after the hit he allowed, he would have gotten out of it. And you could tell when he got pulled, he didn't want to come out.
Right.
He was still throwing well. And I think for the lip readers out there, it wasn't exactly a family broadcast.
Well, when you talk about payroll, though, the Rays payroll prorated was $28 million, and they had the second most wins with their 40 wins. So second most wins at $28 million, and yet they're in the World Series. So what you're saying, Stuart, there's a lot of validity to it, that if the numbers and the stats get so inflated, and they can't afford anybody anyhow, whether they had any fans or not to begin with. So, I mean, you ever heard of such a thing, Mark?
Well, you can carry it all the way to the brink like they did. But, I still bring up the story about Mike Matheny with the Cardinals. And I do know this, that, about, 40 minutes before the game time, he had 3 different lineups in front of him, and he was told to pick one. So,
really?
Yeah. So, I mean, there you go. So he said the good thing about it is I was making $12 million though. So it's pretty easy to decide, okay, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. What do you feel like tonight?
Wow,
And go with the flow. And I never got into asking him about the pitching and how that was handled and things of that nature. But if you're a pitching coach like Mike Maddox is, and he's a very good one, and he's been around the game for such a long time. The pitching coach, the players, the clubhouse is so separate from the administration and the analytics, and the managers and the players know what happened the night before when so-and-so's wife hit him and was all pissed off.
Right.
But for some reason, he's got something under his skin, and he's just not going to fit in tonight and pitch right. But, so analytics people don't know that stuff, so there's a feel right there for getting it right. And why you might want to throw that specific pitcher or put that specific hitter in at this time of the game. So there's reasons.
Pull out your Texas Instruments, Stuart. Take analytics with the Texas Instruments. All right, well, the Dodgers are obviously postponing their championship parade due to the pandemic. Well, I guess everything else is so unprecedented. Why not do that, right, Mark?
Well, I wonder, I never heard about them having a parade yet. Of course, they've got, was it the Kings? I mean, who else won? Tampa Bay's pulling for it because the
Lakers
team won. Right. And then I guess LA is going to have their own parade with the Dodgers at some point. They'll probably go through Beverly Hills and they'll call it quits and see you later, or Hollywood. Right. That's about it. Maybe Tommy will resurface even. Maybe he'll get his own car. Who knows?
Yeah, Tommy was sort of. When was the last time you talked to Tommy at all? I hear he's pretty much laying low as Vin Scully. I mean, Vin Scully's even learning Twitter.
Well, I worked in the Dodgers organization one year, and as a coach. I want to say it was 2000, and I was a AA pitching coach in San Antonio, Texas. Oh, okay. So everybody got to know Tommy. Even if I wasn't a Dodger. My first National League win was against the Dodgers. There's nobody else I could have beat. I'm glad I beat the Dodgers. I love beating the Dodgers. And. But anyway, I lockered next to Tommy, and he's a great guy. He's full of shit, but he's a good guy. He's a great guy.
He was my first major interview at the 1981 baseball winter meetings, and every time I went to Vero Beach, I enjoyed hanging out with him and talking.
Oh, he's fun.
Yeah, he got to know me well. A few good photos there. Do you remember you were in San Antonio, right? Did you know a guy by the name of Ethan Blackaby?
Yeah, I've heard the name. I don't know him.
Yeah, I tried to apply for a job there, but never worked out. But I tried to get in baseball for a time, but Ethan Blackaby out in San Antonio. Boy, I'll tell you how deep the Dodger connections really go. So, but meanwhile, let's go turn our attention to Mookie Betts. He said he supported Justin Turner's decision to return to the field after the positive COVID-19 test. I don't know. I guess Justin worked very hard to contribute to this team, but do you think going on the field, he shouldn't have been there, knowing full well that a lot of people were at risk.
He's 6 feet from him. Who cares?
Right.
You know, in a baseball, I mean, so what? He puts a mask on in the locker room. You know, he showers after the game. You go home. Season's over. You know, either way, the season's over.
I hear he's going to get free agent anyways, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. That's right. Good point.
But the problem was during the celebration, they took a picture. He was not wearing a mask. He was less than 6 feet away from several of his teammates. And you may not agree with it, but it's the law. It's the rules. And he didn't abide by the rules. In fact, Major League Baseball told him they didn't want him going back out there. And he steadfastly refused. And he says, I'm going there. And he could be facing a fine and a suspension for doing that. Because what people don't realize, while he's not showing symptoms, he could come into contact with someone who could pass it on to their child, to an older relative.
Very good point.
That will show symptoms. And that's what I don't think he was thinking about when he did it. Now, I understand, it's the first time he's winning a world championship. There's excitement. You want to be with your teammates, the team that, you were in a few World Series, you fell short. Now this year you finally broke open and won the title. But he needed to be more responsible. And, it's almost a little cringy just watching him there, and he was not wearing a mask all the time. And I think what would have been interesting with all of this, had Tampa Bay won last night, Game 7 would have been delayed because they would have needed the Dodgers. All the team would have had to get tested. They would have needed a couple of negative tests. You might not have seen another game till close to the weekend, Game 7. And that actually would have changed the whole thing with the series because then all the pitchers become available.
Yeah.
So the guys that pitched Game 6, like Blake Snell could come back. All the guys that pitched in Game 6, they could come back. Mm-hmm. So it would have changed everything. As far as the parade, I didn't hear what the Dodgers' plans were. I would guess it's not happening in the next couple of days.
No, not at all. They're going to postpone it. I mean, I guess what you guys are talking about is the Turner situation. There's a big domino effect is what you've got there, where everything will affect everything because of the decision that Turner made to go back on the field to get that group photo, the championship photo, albeit in a year which is such an albatross anyways. It's just crazy stuff. So,
well, he probably thought the alcohol would kill everything. Who knows?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a mudslide right now.
Yeah, maybe the other players that were hugging and kissing him thought the same thing. Who knows? So.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Are they allowing him to drink champagne anymore right now? I hear that they were going to put the bubbly on hold. I don't know. But one guy you have to feel very good about is Clayton Kershaw, who finally wins his ring, and they said they can't take it away. If there's anybody who's taken a brunt of criticism for his postseason difficulties, how can you not be happy for Clayton Kershaw, much less the fact that it occurred in the metropolitan Dallas area, not far from, I believe, he went to school in that area as well. I think the same school that Matthew Stafford was at. So Clayton Kershaw finally can go into the Hall of Fame with a ring and a championship. And I've been saying it from every broadcast, no asterisk. These guys worked their tail off, and they had a rigorous postseason in the bubble. Well, some thoughts about Clayton Kershaw, Mark?
I'm sorry?
That's all right. Thoughts about Clayton Kershaw?
He actually, redeemed himself so well in this playoff and series. He struggled on the one, but he made the other two count, obviously. So there's no doubt about the way he goes about his business. And, he's got 175 wins during the season. That's not a lot, if you look at, Hall of Fame material things. And, I think it's going to probably be a new norm on that as well. We were talking last week about the 250, the two whatever, and, different pitchers. And so you're probably going to have to readjust, to the 200 and 210 or whatever. But, he's got to pitch some more games. People are throwing out names early, like on Mike Trout, for instance. That's a very good, thing to talk about. I love Mike Trout as a player, but hey, you got to give me 8 more years, bud. Mm-hmm. Come on. You know, you just can't go out there and say, hey, I'm Mike Trout, and he was good for 10 years right now, or 10 and a half or 11 or whatever. I mean, give us 8 years of longevity, you know, to where the people really back you and remember you. And the other factor is you're going to have to set out 5 years. Do people remember you after that 5 years?
That's
So,
true.
you know, that's very true. People don't get that. You know, you get the fan base, and I'm on a lot of different Facebook stuff, you know, to where I listen to these fans and they sit there and they really jump the gun, you know, and they're really hip on, you know, so-and-so was 19-6 or whatever. Well, yeah, well, 2 years later, he's done, you know, and he's just kind of rolling along at 12 and 14 and whatever. But, you know, I think it takes longevity. And, you know, the other factor is you've got the fact that he's going to be playing in the same town. I can see Mike Trout obviously playing with the Angels. I can see Kershaw ending his career with the Dodgers. You know, there's a lot of people out there, but you gotta rethink some of this a little bit too.
Well, sure. I think you're 100% right, Mark. You're talking about the new norm here. The bar you're looking at between 2 and 250 max, and much of that is, I feel, is attributed to specialization. These guys, if they get 6-7 innings, to me, that's considered one heck of an effort, a quality start. Where back when we were watching you play ball, 7 innings to me was all well and good, but you were expected to go 8 or 9, and you had the 2 or 3 inning save, as you are all too familiar with. So the standards have changed with all the way the game is being played nowadays.
Yeah, there's just it's a different ball game. It's a different athlete. There's a lot of variables out there. Way too many. There's a lot of variables. Just way too many.
Stuart, what do you want to add about that?
You know, I think one thing that would help Mike Trout down the line is a World Series title. You know, he could put up all the numbers, but if it's going to be close and he's never appeared in a World Series or he's never won anything, it's going to be a little tougher for him to get in. I think at the minimum, he would get in at this point, based on what he's done so far, through the Veterans Committee or whatever they call it nowadays. You know, his numbers would get him in through that. But as far as making the Hall of Fame after he's done and he waits the 5 years, he's going to need to accomplish something in October. And so far he hasn't done that.
Yeah, I guess one thing I could say about Kershaw and Trout, though, at least what would be refreshing about those two guys, at least they can say they played their entire career in one spot, which nowadays doesn't happen very often anymore.
But, you know, it's not a slant. You know, they still got some careers left. And it's very possible in the climate. You know, who would have thought Tom Brady would be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer after 20 years?
Right.
It's very possible both these guys, when their career is winding down, they may feel they could play a year or so longer than their team feels they could play. And if that's the case, you know that a team, at least for the fan base, would take a flyer on, say, a 38, 39-year-old Mike Trout or an older Clayton Kershaw, hoping to recapture some of that magic. So it's not necessarily a slam dunk that they'll finish with their team, but, you know, you would hope that's who they'll always be associated with. And Kershaw, they'll never say he can't do it in the postseason again. It's just like how A-Rod was for many years. They said he couldn't do it in the postseason. He took one World Series title with the Yankees, and you don't hear that about him anymore. You hear other things, but not that.
Well, I think about Justin Verlander. I didn't visualize him anywhere but with a Tiger uniform, but boy, he seems to wear the Houston Astros colors pretty well. And like you said, Stuart, has a championship ring with the Astros. So you guys make some very, very, very valid points. So you talked about Alex Rodriguez. What better way to do things than segue to Alex Rodriguez, who went ahead and said, he talks about Tampa Bay Rays when they were with Blake Snell and his yanking, that the front offices are finally ruining the game of baseball. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. You sit there and you look at so many things. You know, they keep changing the rules. You know, they said we lost the $3.1 billion during this season. I don't know, Stuart. He's the machine man over there with the accounts and stuff, but you really say, is this a $15 billion industry? They lost $3 billion, so they got 12 billion more to play with. And the other thing I was going to bring up about that, Stuart and Scott, was one, you look at so many of these teams that are, Chicago's not pushing along right now with their dinero, their dollars. You know, they're touch and go. There's teams out there. I remember when I was playing, there's a couple of them. You don't hear about them, but if you get into the industry just a little bit, you know, it was tough for them to survive. You know, they were borderline. You know, you sit there and you look, oh, here's the Arizona Diamondbacks or the Cincinnati Reds or, you know, the Pittsburgh Pirates or somebody of that nature. And you sit there, oh, they're going to survive. It's Major League Baseball. I don't think so. I think, you know, it's a big business. And I think, you know, they have to really watch their budgets like any other. And for the Chicago Cubs to go out here and 100 people were let go, you know, a lot from the administration. You look at the St. Louis Cardinals, they let go of 40, you know, during the COVID and the shortened season. Who are you going to bring back? It's business all the way. You know, you've got to put people in the seats. You've got to, you know, sell tickets. You've got to sell logo rights. You've got television, radio hammered in there. You got, you know, national, you got local, you got so many things going on.
But do you feel, Mark, that what Alex Rodriguez is saying is true, that what the Rays are doing by yanking him to the front offices are really ruining the game of baseball by pulling these guys out prematurely, by overthinking everything? Because, you know, I don't always agree with what Rodriguez said. He's certainly not a guy that played the game very clean either with his steroid use and some of the things he's done. But it begs the question, though, you know, about, again, overthinking and whether can you ruin the game that much with moves like that? I mean, if the Rays are doing it, I'm sure other teams are doing it. Right now, they're just on a bigger stage because they did it to two high-profile pitchers.
You know what? I don't think they could ruin the game of baseball this way. And the reason is because we're talking about it. We're discussing it. People are interested in it. You know, so as long as baseball is in the news, it's being discussed. That's the big story. If they had left him in or played it old school, maybe we don't have as much to talk about today. So, you know, there's an expression, any kind of publicity is good, whether, you know, you think it's positive or negative. So, you know, maybe they were too analytical about taking him out when they did, but it's something that we're all talking about the day after. It's a huge storyline, and I don't think that ruins baseball. It keeps baseball in the news.
Well, if you're going to bring up that conversation, everybody will go back to Grady Little leaving in Pedro Martinez late, and all of a sudden you can be it's a catch-22. You either take him out early or you leave him in too late. It's like you're darned if you do, darned if you don't, right, Mark?
Yeah, that's true. You know, you're talking about, you know, Manfred, you know, catching some heat. You know, I don't know, man. I don't know him very well. I don't know him at all. But I'm just sitting here. He saved baseball a little bit because he did make the push for it to come on, and they got through 60 games. They got a World Series. Can you only imagine had we not played this year?
Right. That's a good point.
Because the country was wanting to vent somewhere, you know, and that's how we all vent, is through sport. Now, I think the NFL and the NBA, they pissed a lot of people off. I mean, and baseball did too a little bit. But, you know, baseball was following through on their clean streak like they always have. You know, baseball, the clean sport, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I thought the fans are way out of line, Mark, booing Manfred, because you're right. We talked about it. They really were. So, you know what? Fans are what they are. And I guess at times like this, Mark, I'm glad I'm a member of the media, not a fan. I really don't like being a fan because I've been working in it for too long anyhow. But really, you're going to boo a guy here where, you know, baseball, you know, they have an upcoming labor agreement they're going to have to deal with at some point. But had they have not played because of the negotiation and all the money, then they look bad anyhow. Now you're playing a reduced season, which even though you have managed to make it through the year, having 9 million protocols, outbreaks, and so forth. Manfred should be cheered, not booed. I've never understood why you boo a commissioner like him, or for that matter, I never understood the logic why fans boo the NFL commissioner during the draft. I mean, really? Just keep your mouth shut. And as they say, shut up. Really?
You know what it is, Scott? It's a thankless job. And what happens is the fans, they're not going to a game to see Rob Manfred. They're not going to a game to see any commissioner. They're going to see the players. And if the commissioner makes any sort of decision which has a negative impact, even in the slightest, on a ball player, then they're going to boo him. They're like the bad guy. They're like the man, the management, the big one up above that looks down on everyone. And that's why fans in their nature, they want to see the players play. They want to go see the games. They want to see players hit home runs, strike people out. They don't want to see Rob Manfred. That it takes away from it. So being a commissioner, it's a thankless job. It's very rare when you have a popular commissioner that gets cheered. I honestly, there have been commissioners that maybe were like in the NBA, Silver and Stern, where maybe they didn't get booed, but they weren't exactly cheered. That's the closest to like maybe a popular commissioner in our lifetime. But it goes back. I mean, Bowie Kuhn took a lot of heat. He blocked those from Charles Finley back in the 70s, and he was booed. It's just a thankless job because the fans, the best type of commissioner, and I always say this, and the best type of umpire as well, is the one that no one knows who you are. You kind of just stay out of it. When they know your name really well in that position, that's not necessarily a good sign, in my opinion.
Well, probably true, but in my opinion, the booing was way out of line. Commissioner got them to, Manfred got them to play ball. They worked their differences through. And, I could understand if they booed them if they didn't have a season at all, but they did have a season. It took a little while longer. There were a lot more obstacles and hurdles to get it done. But to boo Rob Manfred after it was over, they should be thanking him up the wang. They really should. So, and I do have problems with fans because to me, they are what they are. But still, I thought the fans were way out of line, and that's what I think. Again, everybody has different opinions, and you're right. It is a thankless job for sure.
5 to 10 years down the road, just talking about this, you can sit there and say, who was ever going to test, the new rules, the analytics, the whatever, at least they're doing a lot of this crap at once.
Right.
And it sounds like here's this guy that's old school that doesn't mind analytics. Well, I think we've always had analytics. They're just used different. They're using different terms. Now, as far as the rule thing with the runner on second, pitcher to the three hitters, you got, the camera and all the replays and things of that nature. That's an issue. But they sit there and they're saying, well, let's try to speed the game up. Well, actually, you're slowing the game down. But you're also saying, well, we've got the instant replay, and, that bites into a lot of time. Changing of the pitchers, that bites into a lot of time because, one, you don't have the 7-inning pitcher anymore, So, but the other factor is that who's going to say, well, somebody needed to try this, at least try it all at once and just get it out of the system.
Right.
I guess, just get it out of the system and say, hell, we tried that shit and it didn't work. So let's go back to, pre-72.
No, that's a good point. You're right. There's a lot of stuff they got out of the way that I hope I don't ever see again, like the man at second base, that's for sure. And I hope we never see a pitch clock and a lot of that stuff. But somebody had to do it, the dirty work. So I'm with you there. So now, obviously, Kevin Cash, though, is defending his decision to pull Snell. He figured that he thought that the process was right. I know every manager is going to certainly try to defend himself, Mark. You've seen this drill before. Should he defend himself, or does he have to bite the bullet and say, maybe I did overthink this thing a little bit?
He doesn't have to defend himself. He's in the frickin' World Series. So what? Well, you can defend yourself. You're going to have to answer to somebody. You might as well answer to the reporter that asked the question so they can print the hell out of it. Just make sure you get it right. So, and that's just a simple question, you know. You're put on the spot for about 3 questions on something that are in the hot seat. You know, the other ones are, you know, pretty much simple. They hold true to the eye anyway. But you know, and you know, the managers that are good, you know, they know how to handle the press, and the press, you know, expects to learn their personality just as well. So
name me a person that wasn't rooting for Dave Roberts, because Dave Roberts became the second black and the first Asian manager to win the World Series. Because I'll tell you what, I would think the success that Dave Roberts had, getting that big gorilla off his back, I would believe it should open up the door a little bit for more minority candidates, because I know that there's some quality minority candidates out there. But this is hopefully something that will lead to more of those potential opportunities.
you would think so. Dave Roberts did a really good job. He's not a hard job. One, he's in LA. One, he's got high-end ball players. I mean, you know, it's not like they're kids coming out of rookie ball here. You know, these guys are high end, and they all got big time agents. They all got this. They all got this. They all, you know, got Xboxes from hell that are, you got super duper people, you know, making these son of a bitches that they probably got $100,000 Xboxes, you know, sitting there in the clubhouse. But it's crazy. But you know, it's tough what he's doing. You know, and it doesn't matter what color, what culture you're coming from. It's tough. But no, I agree with you. You know, as far as getting, you know, the culture thing. Yeah, it's due, and you know it's due. And there's highly qualified guys out there.
Right.
Highly qualified. You know, and they do a great job. You know, and the other factor is too. You know, you sit there and you look at the personalities. You know, well, Dave Roberts has a great personality. He really, really does. I don't know the personality of Cash so much. I'm certainly sure that he did a great job of pulling these young kids together that had a $28 million, you know, salaries, you know, for that team versus the 118 million or whatever it was.
Right.
You know, it was a ridiculous amount, but both of those guys had a hard job, a tough job. It's not hard. It's just that you have to be in sync. And, you know, and Dave Roberts was in sync. If you would put Cash over with LA, it probably wouldn't work. If you put Dave Roberts the other side, it probably wouldn't have worked.
Well, that's an excellent point. It really is. Call it the David and Goliath World Series we have. I guess what's so interesting about Roberts winning the title with the Dodgers, though, and it's going to always lead back to, it's good that an African-American manager won in L.A., especially the history that Jackie Robinson was the broken color barrier with the Dodgers. So you talk about a situation that goes full circle. That one did. And, you know, Mark, being in the game as long as you have, you know, the Dodgers have certainly, you know, been pioneers on the race and trying to make sure minorities were there. And I know that many, many years ago, they were embarrassed by the comments that Al Campanis made, that thinking that African Americans could not manage. Did you ever have a chance to watch that Nightline interview with Ted Koppel at all?
No, I did not. I did not.
You know what, Mark? I got to know Tommy Lasorda and Al Campanis real well at the 1981 baseball winter meetings. I was just 19 years old at the time, 19 or 18, 19, whatever it was. And, you know, Ted Koppel gave him every opportunity to get out of it. And I've never seen a person to hang himself the way that he did, and I felt so bad. So when you put the Dodgers World Series into perspective, and then you even feel better for Dave Roberts in an organization like that, I think it puts things into really the proper context. I mean, you know, Al Campanis and Tommy Lasorda, was a thrill that they had, ironically, in 1981, they won the World Series during a abbreviated campaign. I think it was a short strike campaign, and yet here we are. They're winning it during COVID-19. You know, a very abbreviated campaign, but it doesn't taint the accomplishment anymore at all, considering the hoops and the extra things that they had to go through.
You've had, Frank Robinson, you've had Davey Lopes, you've had Cecil Cooper, black managers, African American, and there's so many opportunities, right here, to plug in, and it will happen more often. I can guarantee you that for sure, because it's just the way it is. So sport is a sport.
I think the big test will be the next time there are managerial openings, how the interview process goes and what's ultimately decided, to see what is learned by this. Because honestly, every time you think that baseball may turn a corner and hire more, they kind of go back to their own ways. So one thing I didn't hear any mention, for better or for worse, that Dave Roberts was African American or Asian. He was a World Series winning manager. Mm. And I think he would like to be known as that, not necessarily for anything else. And I don't know if teams are all of a sudden going to say, well, because of Dave Roberts, we should really look at minorities. I don't know if that's going to necessarily change their thinking. They may look for someone with the personality of Dave Roberts, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the nationality of him. So I don't know if baseball is going to learn from this. We'll have to kind of wait and see what happens. And obviously, I don't think we're going to see too many openings this year, because I think a lot of guys are getting a pass because of this shortened season. Right. But next year, when there'll be more vacancies, let's see what the interview process is, and let's see what's ultimately decided. The NFL has the Rooney Rule, where teams are supposed to interview at least one minority for a position.
Right.
A lot of times when I've seen that, it's really been just they've had to do it, but they weren't serious candidates, and then they just go back and hire someone they're comfortable with. Well, so let's see what baseball. Right. So let's see what baseball does with this, and we're not going to know probably till mid to late 2021 as to whether they're turning a corner on something with this, whether they're looking at Dave Roberts' success as a chance to grow.
Well, you've only got 3 managerial openings left. You have Boston, Red Sox, Chicago White Sox, and the Detroit Tigers, with all due respect. But yeah,
the White Sox, who is the favorite? Tony La Russa.
Well, not anymore. I wouldn't hold your breath. I haven't heard that name in a while. It's funny how we do all these shows back to back to back, and how things do change a little bit. But yeah.
Oh, something today that I guess Tony La Russa is talking about, like a coaching staff now. He's reached out to people, so he could be still considered a favorite for this position.
Oh. Well, Alex Cora might come back with Boston here even.
Yeah, that one would not surprise me. You had a little time for things to die out. And so that one surprised me. I don't know, Mark, when we fill these managerial openings and I mastermind my way through this technology, we could definitely talk about that. There's never any shortage of things to say. But yeah, but like I said, I don't want to sound like I'm berating the Ted Koppel interview, but how there's certain things that you see in life that just stand out in your mind, that you just can't, that you replay in your head. Do you know what I mean? And you just feel bad for certain individuals because do they really mean it? No, but when it comes out a certain way, you're labeled that way forever. But I'm really happy. And everybody's talked about baseball being behind on the minority side in a lot of different ways compared to other sports. So I don't know, does this make a difference or not? I don't know. But you know what? The LA Dodgers earned it. And I think what's interesting is Kirk Gibson, I think ESPN had him on when he talked about his 88 World Series, and they talked about how much they, breaking the 32-year drought that they had. And this year they were expected to do it, where beforehand with his inspiring play to hit that home run, how the whole Dodger thing came full circle. And I think that's what a lot of people have to really appreciate in a lot of ways under some tough circumstances. Because if you manage in the major leagues in 2020, you probably aged by 3 years with everything you had to deal with.
That's why you better have a good bench coach.
Yeah, no, that's true. So anyways, any closing thoughts, Mark, about the 2020 campaign in general?
No, I'm glad they got to play. That's the biggest thing in my book. And, I'm really glad they got to play baseball, because I think had they not, it would have been dismal. for this spring training. They're going to have to go through contract talks. They got, the whole 9 yards. You're going to have clashes on that. And it's always about money. And, with COVID, you don't have money. You've got a country that's up and down right now. And sports is obviously, you got some multi-million-dollar players that they want more, and there probably isn't more out there. You've got the almighty advertising, conglomerate out there just as well, and they too watch their budgets. So, people have to be smart about this whole thing. I think it's going to boil down to, and you've always heard, to where there's 3 or 4 guys on the team that make the big money. The other guys are fillers. They're fillers. They make good money. They make great money, but I mean some big money. But there's also those guys out there that are fillers. And the other thing is that you're going to have pitching. So, you're going to see pitching suffer in a sense as far as the almighty dollar, unless you've got 2 of the almighty guys out there on that team that pull that pitching staff together. 2 to 3 guys. You've got 2 to 3 players, 2 to 3 guys. It boils down to around 5 guys, that make this whole team work. So
yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is that baseball avoided the public relations disaster that it was facing before they got the players back on the field, number one. So thankfully that didn't happen, because we all talked about the 1994 strike. If this season doesn't go, how long will it take for baseball to recover? Guess what? We don't have to worry. The World Series wasn't canceled. They played it. The postseason worked out well. They did it in the bubble. At least it's done. Now they have an off season. They have a little time to regroup for spring training. Hopefully there's a vaccine in sight down the road, so that at least, in fact, I should point out, I don't know if you guys heard about this, but the Super Bowl, they're talking about playing it in front of just 20% fans too. I don't know if you had heard that, but if the Super Bowl is going to be played to 20% capacity, well, can you imagine that we have a long ways to go until spring training with all the other things that are going on? But baseball avoided 1994, and they managed to crown a champion, and that's all we could ask for. So hopefully, there'll be a positive carryover into spring training that will ultimately lead to a collective bargaining agreement, because baseball doesn't need anything else bad to happen to it. And we're all thankful that at least we have a champion, to say the least. Stuart, some closing thoughts.
I think what makes the baseball season a success is that the 2 teams in the World Series were really the 2 best teams during the regular season. And even going back to March, before we knew it was going to be a shortened season, everyone was picking the Dodgers in the National League. I know a lot of people were picking the Yankees, but Tampa Bay was definitely a contender. There were no flukes here. And that's what you're concerned about in a 60-game schedule, that a team just gets hot that normally would have no shot and goes far. And I think that's what baseball didn't want to happen. And I think they're satisfied with the Dodgers being the world champions. They're satisfied that Tampa Bay played them in the World Series. So, yeah, the season is a success as much as it could have been given the circumstances. And now they look ahead to 2021 with the hope that there'd be some sort of normalcy come next year.
Yeah, I think when you look at the matchup and you put it in perspective, thankfully we did see Tampa Bay and the Dodgers. You didn't want a sub-500 team in the World Series, let alone the Astros and the Dodgers. And the Tampa Bay Rays avoided that for sure. So, and again, and one thing that can't get lost in the whole thing, there are a lot of playoff droughts that were snapped, and a lot of young guys ended up getting much valuable postseason experience and were able to deal with a pennant race. So I can only imagine how much that will further their careers as well. So there are a lot of good things that came out of this year. So with all due respect, it's been great to have Mark Littell on the broadcast 3 straight weeks where we able to see the whole thing through. So Stuart, why don't you let everybody know how they get a hold of you? I want Mark to give us the old Mark Littell stuff, even though he doesn't have the visuals there. So go ahead, Stu. You lead off with the Texas Instruments.
Okay, so I'm Stuart Hack, Hack Tax and Accounting Services, and I've made it my mission in honor of this shortened season to try and bring back the 1040 EZ. We want the tax form for the shortened season. I'm on it. So if you have we're going to try and bring it back. They took it away a couple of years ago, but we want to bring it back.
Yeah.
But I'm located in Wellington, Palm Beach County. Hacktaxandaccounting.com is me on the web. You can reach me, Stuart, at hacktaxandaccounting.com. And my phone number, 561-214-6171.
All right, Mark Littell, you don't have the visuals, but you got the audio down real well. So you have books, you have Nutty Buddies,
Right.
wherever you want, Mark.
Well, anyway, you go out to spelling my name right there. It says Mark Littell, and then you put a .com behind it, and you're going to get a couple books that come up. One is called On the Eighth Day God Made Baseball, and the other one is called Country Boy, Conveniently Wild. And sometimes I get a little wild and crazy, but on the most part, I'm kind of sane. I have a third book coming out, and they're all kind of fun to read. So anyway, I like humor, especially in sport. The other factor is I'm an inventor of the Nutty Buddy, which is you can go to nuttybuddy.com and see what it's all about. But the Nutty Buddy is the world's greatest protective cup, and what I do with it is it's anatomically correct, and you can wear it with comfort and with protection. And I'm not going to take any more 90-mile-an-hour shots. That's going to be my new thing for the next year or two. No more 90-mile-an-hour shots. I'm tired of taking shots to the nuts. So anyway, there you go. It's a great product. Anybody can wear it if you got a pair. The other factor is baseball, hockey, lacrosse. Like I said, anybody that's got a pair, even bull riders. Matter of fact, I have an infomercial. You can go to nuttybuddy.com and you'll see all the infomercials of me getting shot in the nads. And I'm not going to do that anymore.
Well, since this is a Los Angeles World Series and NCIS LA does come on, we don't want to sit here and give Kenzie Bly her due if she takes her 5'10" frame and decides to go ahead and utilize her long legs and puts the Nutty Buddy to use. I know it's a crazy joke that Mark Littell and I love to have around. So the Nutty Buddy can handle fastballs, and it can probably handle Kenzie Bly Danella Roy, and is her real name. But if you can take her shot, more power to you. I'm not going to get any more descriptive than that. It is what it is. But in terms of you are listening and watching the Sports Exchange, my name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth, along with Stuart Hack. Glad to have our baseball analyst, Mark Littell, on the broadcast. If you want to follow us on Twitter, feel free to do so at Tribune South. That's at Tribune South. Facebook and Instagram, South Florida Tribune Gets It Done. YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. Please subscribe to that. And I'll give you 6 reasons why you should. You can watch the Sports Exchange, No Limits, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, Real and the Rare, Fantasy Football, South Florida Tribune Podcast. My wife, Candy Ebling, had a great broadcast with myself and I on No Limits where we talked about baseball parks last night. So that's a great broadcast. Candy did a heck of a job last night. Our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. We have the Motor City Monitor on there for a lot of folks in Metro Detroit that want to catch up on news from southeastern Michigan. We do have a business partner in the metropolitan Detroit area, and we'll be going back and forth to market it back in my hometown. We get content from our media distribution partners, as well as our columnists, and the broadcasts also appear on the southfloridatribune.com website. You can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com, and you can contact us on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth. If you want to hear the audio version of the broadcast, you can do so through Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast. So meanwhile, Mark Littell, we are so thrilled to have you on yet for the 3rd straight week in a row. We love having you on. From my heart to my mouth and my heart to your ears, I tell you what, to me, you're the greatest pitcher and greatest guest and friend that I have. You are truly one of a kind, Mark, and I love having you on. And, to me, you're an extended part of our family, and I can't thank you enough for just being a part of it. To me, you're the BEST, okay? Even if your Nutty Buddy could be preventing anybody from dealing with the BEAST beast. So, unintended, what can I tell you?
Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you.
We really love having you on, Mark. To me, you're an extended part of my family, so please don't ever forget that. And I look forward to the day that I can see you face-to-face and give you a hug or an elbow bump. But meanwhile, think about where it's coming from with my heart, my mind. You are really the best, Mark, and God love you. You are the best.
All right. Thank you. Thank you
So
much.
meanwhile, for all you folks out there, I have to make sure that this gets said. Take COVID-19 seriously. Mask up. Do your social distancing. Use common sense. Sanitize yourself. Do whatever is necessary because we don't have a vaccine yet. And I'll tell you what, who knows when we're going to get one. And I should also point out to everybody, please go ahead and vote. This is a very important election, and every vote matters. So between COVID-19 and voting, we've given you a lot to think about and chew on, but there's a lot to do. But meanwhile, thanks again for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. And don't worry, Mark, you'll be invited back sooner than you think. So hope you feel better, and God bless Mark, Stuart. You guys are the best. I have nothing more to say. I'm speechless, and that takes a whole lot for me to have for me to.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Night.